Episode 14, should you pay off your mortgage before you retire? Imagine heading into retirement with no mortgage payment. Sounds peaceful, right? But is it the smartest financial move? You might want to listen because I got a few different reasons that might make you start questioning that. Hello and welcome to SWBC's Uncharted Wealth Podcast, where we help you explore the financial landscape and help you navigate your journey to retirement with clarity and confidence. I'm your host, Mike Walters. I am a wealth advisor and certified financial planner here at SWBC. And today we're going to be answering one of the biggest questions that most pre-retirees have. Should you be paying off your mortgage before you retire? Okay. Is it better to retire debt-free or keep the mortgage and keep making the payments while you're in retirement? Today I'm going to explore a different couple things on what makes sense, whether the pros and cons of paying it off early or keeping that payment as you go into retirement. It's a common dilemma for pre-retirees, and it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. Before I jump into this topic, though, I would like to just tell everyone, hey, if this is something that resonates with you, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way you can get more information like this as you're navigating your journey to retirement. Now, there's a couple different sides to making this decision. The first one is the emotional side, okay? There's something deeply comforting when it comes to paying off debt. It's just a natural human thing. We're all humans. We want to pay off debt. And entering retirement without a mortgage payment, that's just it probably feels so good. I say probably because obviously my mortgage is not paid off. But as most pre-retirees, that's one of the biggest things they're trying to decide. Should I pay off my mortgage before I retire? It's one less bill to worry about. And when you're trying to think of like what my retirement expenses are going to be, my lifestyle expenses, that's one less bill that you have to manage, right? So not only is this simplifying your budget, it just kind of feels right. You know, and peace of mind has value, especially in retirement. When you're shifting from accumulating to decumulating or distributing your assets, peace of mind can be worth more than trying to optimize, right? Which we'll talk a little bit later. So, you know, no monthly payment, it's going to be less stress. The psychological benefits of owning your home outright, I mean, that's what a lot of people are striving for. And then again, a simpler budget in retirement. These are these emotional aspects of paying off your mortgage. Now let's look at the financial side of things, okay? There's an opportunity cost, right? So for example, let's say you have a $200,000 mortgage with a 3.5% interest rate. If you pay off that mortgage, you are essentially locking in your 3.5% interest rate as a return, okay? Because that's what you're saving in interest. You're saving that 3.5% that you would have paid, you know, when making payments. But what if that $200,000 could instead be invested, right? And maybe you make 6% or 7% or 8% or 9%. What happens if you make 10% or 11%? Okay, anyways, you get my drift. What if you can invest that and make more than the 3.5% that you would have saved paying it off, right? So that's the opportunity cost of paying it off early, right? That could be a big difference over time. There's also liquidity concerns, okay? And this is one of the conversations I tend to bring up quickly when my clients come to me and ask, should I pay off my mortgage early? When you pay off your mortgage, you are essentially giving up any of that liquidity, any of that cash that you had that was easily accessible for emergencies or opportunities in the market, or you know, if maybe your kids or your grandkids come to you with something, you know, hey, can you help pay for this, whatever. You can't do that anymore. You know, you're essentially locking up that liquidity in your home's value. The only way to access that is to do a home equity loan or a reverse mortgage and things like that. It's just a lot more convoluted process once you get to that point. So it's important to consider what you're giving up in return for your peace of mind. Okay, so The financial side needs to be looked at as well as the emotional side. But here's what you really want to pay attention to, okay? When it makes sense to pay off your mortgage early. Number one, if you're retiring with no other debt, okay? If your mortgage is the last thing on your list of things to pay off, it might make sense for you to have that peace of mind. No more debt, okay? I'm debt free. If you have ample liquidity and emergency savings, okay? So if you have enough cash sitting on the sidelines and then you pay your mortgage off and you still have excess cash enough to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses, or if you implement a war chest is what I implement with my clients, then you would still have that flexibility to do those other things we talked about. If you have a high mortgage rate, now anybody who has bought a house in the last couple of years knows that you probably have a high interest rate, right? But let's just remember that interest rate right now is relative, right? Because what were interest rates 20, 30 years ago? Like my mom always tells me like, oh, you're lucky you got your interest rate at 6%, blah, blah, blah. Like we were paying 19% or whatever. And I'm like, Mom, whatever. Anyways, but if you think you have a high interest rate, I would say anything above 5%, I could probably have that conversation of should you pay your mortgage off early. It might make sense to pay it off, right? Because like we said earlier, if you had a 3.5%, locking that in, it's a lot easier to potentially beat 3.5% in the market. But if you have 5% or 6%, something like that, it's a lot more challenging to consistently beat that in returns in investments, okay? Unless you're like a super wizard investing person or whatever. But think about it. The S&P 500 returns on average an 8% per year over time annually. So put it in those terms. And the last thing, when it makes sense, if you're just absolutely valuing peace of mind over maximizing your returns, then just pay it off. Like you're not going to get a pushback from me as long as you can confidently tell me like, hey, this is just something in my heart. I prayed about it or whatever. I just got to pay it off, and then I can get behind that. Okay, but here's some reasons why it might not. Okay, and a lot of these are just going to be the opposites of what I just said when it makes sense. But it may not make sense to pay it off if you have a low interest rate, if you'd have to withdraw from your retirement account and potentially trigger taxes, right? So if you have to pull out of your IRAs or something like that, 401k, you're going to trigger taxes, right? You have to pay ordinary income. You might have to pay a penalty depending on your age, or so on and so forth. If that's going to happen, then it's probably not going to make sense for you to pay extra taxes just to, pay off your mortgage and lock it up, right? If you're short on liquid assets, like you don't have an emergency fund, and if you're still itemizing deductions, okay? Whoa, did you speak taxes? Yes, I did speak a little bit about taxes. If you're itemizing deductions right now, you know that you can itemize your mortgage interest expenses as an itemized deduction, right? And with the changes in the tax law recently, and I mean, that's something definitely to talk to your advisor or your CPA about. But if you are still itemizing, you're still taking advantage of that mortgage interest expense, then it might be a good reason for you to not pay it off and keep using that as a deduction in your taxes. Now, before I jump into the uncharted territory for today's episode, just a reminder for everybody, if any of these things that I've been talking about you have more questions about, or you think it might be in your interest to speak with a wealth advisor, we are here for you, okay? You can access our information. I think it's going to be put at the bottom of the screen or whatever. You can give us a call or shoot us an email, and one of our associates will reach out to you to schedule an initial consultation. But just to plug it out there, that we are available to help you with these questions. Now going into our uncharted territory. I would like everybody to look at it maybe as a balanced approach, okay? Maybe doing a partial pay down of the mortgage, or possibly doing a refinance when interest rates are low. Obviously right now is not a very good time to do a refinance, but in the future, right, rates are not always going to stay this way, but maybe we look at compromising a little bit of both, right? Maybe we pay off some of your mortgage, right, just to get a head start on when that actual final payment is going to be made, but still reserve some of your emergency savings and liquidity for other things. There's also something I like to call a mortgage offset strategy, okay? And so instead of paying off the mortgage completely, in our example, we were using $200,000. So instead of taking $200,000 out of your cash or wherever, let's invest that money instead. But in our minds, we are going to kind of earmark those monies specifically for paying off your mortgage, okay? This is going to be your mortgage payoff reserve. And it gives you the flexibility to, like, you know, hey, if you wanted to pay the mortgage off tomorrow, like, you know, you tell your friends, well, I could pay my mortgage off tomorrow if I wanted to. Cool. Yes, that's what it gives you, that peace of mind knowing you can do that. But you can still and have that money invested, keep it somewhat liquid, you know, in case other opportunities arrive. Another thing you could do is if you are, let's say, like you are in some type of fixed income portfolio with that $200,000, and as you're getting interest payments or something, you can apply those interest payments towards your mortgage, like as extra mortgage payments. So you're still paying it off early, but you're not sacrificing the $200,000 of liquidity, right? So that's a good option too. You want to remember with all this, retirement is about flexibility. And sometimes the best decision isn't one that makes you feel the best. It's one that gives you the most options. Because think about it this way, when you're in retirement, you're probably not going to want to go back to work. And if you start making decisions that can't get reversed, like paying off your mortgage, and you get into a situation where, oh man, I need more cash, I need more liquidity for, you know, maybe healthcare expenses or something, you can't go back and take that money out, you know, without doing, like I said earlier, a reverse mortgage or a home equity loan, something like that, or you have to go back to work, which nobody wants to do. So just remember, flexibility is probably one of the most important things in retirement, and we want to make sure that you're making those decisions that keep flexible. So as a key takeaway today, paying off your mortgage can bring you that peace of mind, but it's not always the best financial move. You're going to want to make sure that you weigh those emotional and financial options there, because the right answer here is just going to depend on your goals, your numbers, and what your mindset is going into making this decision. I would encourage everyone that has a mortgage to review the terms and compare it to what the current rates are. You know, most people can easily say, oh, I have a low rate, I got it in, you know, 2020, 2021, or whatever, when rates were just like historically at their lowest. And it's easy to go onto Bloomberg or Yahoo or something and know what the current rates are right now. And I think right now they're still in 6.8 or somewhere around there. Like that's still considerably higher than 3.5%. But review your terms and kind of just come up with a game plan. Like maybe we have a goal of, if interest rates drop down to, I don't know, 4.5% or 5%, then that's when we'll start talking about refinancing and just knowing what your options are going to be. Also, talk to a financial advisor, right? We already said this earlier. Talk to a financial advisor who knows more of these complex nuances of these types of things, just to see if you're making the right decision. You know, if you can always have an advisor weigh your options for you if you're having difficulty moving past the emotional aspect of it and looking at the financial things objectively. And they can help you make that before you go and make that, you know, sometimes irreversible lump sum decision of paying off your mortgage. Hey everyone, don't forget the disclaimers. This is not to be taken as tax, legal, or financial advice, so don't be a silly goose and try these things on your own. Talk to a professional. Shameless plug right here. Okay. As a reminder, everything I talk about is my opinion, not the opinion of SWBC or its executives. So go and tell your grandma, your sister, your auntie, and whoever else you want to talk to about this podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe so that you can see me in 2 weeks. Bye now. Chastity wanted me to throw the cards.
Investing involves certain risks, including possible loss of principal. You should understand and carefully consider a strategy's objectives, risks, fees, and expenses, and other information before investing. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change and are not intended to be a recommendation or investment advice. Such views do not take into account the individual financial circumstances or objectives of any other investor that receives them. This information should not be considered a solicitation nor a recommendation of an offer to provide any service in any jurisdiction where it would be unlawful to do so under the laws of that jurisdiction. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please consult with your individual tax professionals and/or attorney for additional information.